Hey guys, Raymond here from the Beginner Photography Podcast, and today we are talking about how you can turn photography into a profitable hobby. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast with Raymond Hatfield, the podcast dedicated to interviewing world-class photographers to ask them the questions you want answered. Whether you want to be the world's best wedding photographer, family photographer, pet photographer, or you just want to take better photos of your kids growing up, we will get you to start taking better photos today. Here with you as always, husband, father, home brewer, LA Dodgers fan, and award-winning Indianapolis wedding photographer, Raymond Hatfield.
Hello, each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. We got a massive episode in store for you guys today, and one that can hopefully continue this hobby if you intend to just keep it that way and you don't want to, go full time. More on that in a few minutes. We got a few little pieces of business to talk about. First thing, my week. My week has been, it's been good. And it's been kind of, whatever. I'm finally getting little pieces of the office put together, some security cameras up around the house. They're the Ring video doorbell, and then all the stick-up cameras as well, so I can kind of monitor the house. It's a pretty cool system because it's battery powered and you don't have to have any wires, but at the same time, it only records when there's motion within 30 feet of the camera. So it's got its pros and cons. There's a chain of stores, I think just through the Midwest, I'm not sure, called H.H. Gregg, and they're going out of business, right? And so everything that they're selling is like dirt cheap. So I went in there and I found one of these Ring cameras for 40% off. So I got all excited. I bought one right away, right? I thought, man, you can't find these things cheaper online. Like, this is a great deal. 40% off, got it, brought it home, set it up, and was all excited. And then I went to go buy a little accessory on Amazon, and I found out that Amazon sold it cheaper than what the store that I was buying it from, that's going out of business, was selling it for. And that was just kind of made me a little, tiffed, I guess. And I guess the point of that is that Amazon has been great for photography, right? There are so many things that you can go on and find that maybe you didn't even know existed, but can solve a problem that you have. And on top of that, it's always super competitively priced, and that's why I do all of my shopping through Amazon. And if you're anything like me, I actually bought 2 more of the cameras from Amazon just because they were so much cheaper. So I went ahead and did that through there. And if you buy all your stuff on Amazon, another thing that we just set up is these little dash buttons. I don't know if you've heard of these things, but essentially it's a button. There's no screen. It's just one button with all you do is click it, and that's it. But they partner with brands. So this one right here that I have in my hand is Tide. So I just stick this thing right next to my washing machine, and whenever I run out of laundry detergent, I just press the button, and then it just shows up on my door 2 days later. And it's great. We got it for toothpaste and, toilet paper, things that aren't always top of mind. Like, oh yeah, we need, milk, things like that. So having this has been really cool. And if you use Amazon, you're awesome. If you don't use Amazon, I highly suggest that you do. And when you buy anything through Amazon, you can support the podcast if you get any value from it whatsoever by not even donating money to the podcast, but just buying things that you normally buy through Amazon through our affiliate link. Whenever you buy anything, they give us a small percentage, and it just helps keep things afloat here at the Beginner Photography Podcast. There's a lot of time that goes into each episode, and the little bit just shows that you guys truly appreciate what I'm doing and are getting value from it, and I truly appreciate that. So if you're interested and you want to help support the podcast, that's the easiest way to do it. Just head over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com, and then you'll see a link for an Amazon button. You just click on it, it'll take you to Amazon, and then you just buy, you just do all your normal shopping that you typically do, and feel good about yourself because you're an excellent human being for supporting something that you got for free. So there you go. Awesome stuff. Next, last week's episode, we had Heidi Thompson on, who talked about, finding your ideal client. And I've been getting good feedback from that episode. And in the episode, I mentioned that when her book comes out, I'm going to be giving away I'm going to be buying a copy for myself and then giving a copy away to one of you, the listeners of the podcast. I didn't have any, idea of how the contest would work at that time, but here is how it's going to work. So what you need to do is, since you're already over at thebeginnerphotographypodcast.com, to click on our Amazon link to go ahead and buy all your goods and stuff, like toilet paper. Like I said, I buy toilet paper on Amazon. I don't have to leave the house and buy 100 rolls of toilet paper at the store where people think that I have some sort of horrible disease. I could just do it, no shame. Toilet paper comes to my house. It's wonderful. So while you're at beginnerphotographypodcast.com, at the top, you can sign up to join the newsletter for the podcast. In the newsletter, not only are you going to get all the latest information on guests and kind of behind the scenes look at what's going on and extras, but you will also get a set of presets to download right away for Lightroom. It will help you with your editing process. It makes everything just much more efficient. And everybody who signs up for the podcast newsletter, I'm going to take all of those names and then just draw a name out of the hat, essentially, out of the bucket of all the subscribers on the podcast newsletter. And then I will reach out to you and you will have won. And I will announce that next week. So if you're listening live, that will be May 15th, 2017. That is my good friend Steve Sanders' birthday. We are all going to wish him a happy birthday. Maybe we can all sing together. That'd be great. He'd love that. So again, if you want to win Heidi Thompson's book on how to find and define your ideal client, and you want to win it for free, then that's all you got to do. Just sign up for the Beginner Photography Podcast newsletter, and you will be entered to win. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And on top of that, you're also going to get a link to join the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group, where members and past guests of the podcast come together and can talk, ask questions, communicate, share ideas, and just grow photography. So who doesn't love that idea? Nice and simple. That's it. Like I mentioned earlier in the intro today, photography can be an incredible hobby. It can be a ton of fun, but it can also be pretty expensive, as most of you know. And if you have no intentions of ever becoming a professional photographer, leaving your day job, you like your day job, or you like the benefits, or, it's just you can't leave your day job yet, then finding ways to have photography make you money is essential and important, right? Like you want to go out and have fun and shoot the things that you love and still make a few dollars. Like, what's wrong with that? And today's guest knows all about it. And he's going to share a lot of great information on how he just takes his regular photos, uploads them to certain websites, and just collects a check. So that's all that I'm going to say. I'm really excited for this episode for you guys to listen to. So let's just hop into it right now with James Wheeler. Today's guest is an amateur photographer whose struggles sharing his photos led him to co-found Photerloo that will help ease some of the pain in uploading photos to multiple sites. Today, James Wheeler. James, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I'm glad to be here.
Right on. So, like I just said, thank you for coming on the podcast. And as I mentioned in the intro, you're an amateur photographer, but I don't want people to think that that's synonymous with inexperience. Can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings in photography and how you got started?
Yeah. So I guess I really started with my first camera back in, say, 2003. So back then I decided I wanted to do some traveling, and I moved to Asia. And so I figured I should take some pictures while I'm there. So I bought like a point and shoot camera, and I did a lot of traveling from 2003 to 2009 around there. But it was really like I was taking photos, and I kind of got frustrated that what I saw was never what was in my photos, right? So I was seeing all these amazing things, but I didn't know how to capture them. So after a couple of years, I really started studying photography, and it was like in 2009, I bought my first like entry-level DSLR, and really self-taught, just learned, online, a lot of resources, and it's been over 10 years now, so I kind of have learned a couple of things and have gone through a couple bodies, and that's how I kind of got started, and still just love taking photos. Like it's just become my passion and my main hobby.
That's crazy. I mean, definitely travel is always one of those things that people will find a reason to buy a camera for, because going to new places is always so fun and exciting. That's incredible that you said that you just up and decided to move to Asia. Is that right?
Well, it was a conscious decision, right? I
Well,
wanted
yeah,
to
no, of
travel
course, but I
more,
mean, like,
and
you moved there was it for work? Was it for family? Was it just on a whim?
no, it was more on a whim. I went over there. I wanted to I wanted to move to Asia, and then I wanted to go and travel more, and I figured, okay, well, I might as well go and move to Asia. I went there and I taught English for a while, then I got other jobs as I kind of moved around, and I kind of did a lot of people do this, but just, work for a while, save up enough money to go traveling, and then go traveling, run out of money, and then go and work for a while. I ended up doing that for about 5 years.
Yeah, that sounds stressful, I guess would be the word, right?
Yeah.
So during that time, you're out, you're seeing these new wonderful things, all these experiences, and you now have your camera. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the struggles you had in the beginning with, you mentioned seeing something in your head, how a shot should happen, but then not being able to get it in camera. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I just, I go and, travel and try to see these amazing things or just have my camera. But obviously I didn't know anything about exposure. I didn't know. I didn't know. I was just, had it on auto and was clicking the button, right? And when you get home, even sometimes look in the little viewfinder. When you get home and put them on a computer, you share them. They never really turned out the way that I wanted them to, right? And it wasn't, what was in my mind and what I was sending back to my family, the photos of the places I was going, didn't really, I think, reflect what I saw, right? So that's when, I'm like, okay, well, why not? I see all these other photos online that are amazing. Why aren't mine amazing? And it kind of, and then I went down that rabbit hole of trying to learn photography, which, didn't think it would be it'd take me 10 years to to do it and still only feel like I know half of it. But you know what I mean? There's always something new to learn, right? And I enjoy learning, and I just, every time I learned something, it got a little bit better and a little bit better, and I just kept trying techniques and just then really got into it, right? And just kind of, that's how it took off.
So what are some of the resources that you first started off when you wanted to learn more about photography?
To be honest, actually, a lot of it was podcasts. Your podcast wasn't around at that time, but there was like TWIP. I listened to that every week, and I listened to a lot of podcasts. And then they had guests that talked about books and talked about software and talked about everything. And then, so I used to listen to the podcast while I was running, and then I'd come home and I'd go and I'd get all the links, and I bought a lot of courses and a lot of books, and I tried the things they were talking about. And that's kind of, that's how I got introduced to a lot of these things, right? Was first on the podcast, and then once social media was more prevalent, I used a lot of social media, followed photographers whose photos I liked, and then whatever they were talking about, books they're talking about, I kind of just bought them and went there. That was kind of my learning.
Do you have a favorite book or course that there was any sort of aha moment for you?
I think like I bought some of the early courses like that Trey Radcliffe did, right? And when I got into those, that's when I think I really started to understand like post-processing and how important post-processing was, right? Because I think before that, like, like I go in and I'd edit my photos a bit, but like just listening to him talk about how his mind works in like post-processing, and that got me into other post-processing courses, which I think really include, like, like, I'm like, oh, I gotta learn this, right? You know what I mean? And once getting into all those other post-processing courses, now I've got all these different techniques I can go to for different situations. And I think about that when I'm shooting. Like when I'm out shooting, I'm like, okay, I need to take 3 exposures here because this is way too much dynamic range, right? Or, and so that kind of went to my shooting. And then once I was shooting with that in mind, I think I really started to improve more. Right?
That's a great journey. I think that a lot of listeners are going to be able to, feel the same way as you. They've been there. They've taken these courses, and they feel like there's so much now inside of them that they want to learn and just go out and do. And that's great that you actually did that. You took that knowledge, you went out there, you learned it, and then you applied it, and it made you a better photographer. And slowly better and better every day until here you are today. So. You're taking all these photos now. You're getting better at photography. And then you mentioned that social media really started to take off, and now you're sharing photos. I also mentioned in the intro that you co-founded Photerloo. Can you tell people about it and how you got to the point to where you created it?
Okay, yeah. So like as I kind of went through and through my photography learning, right? Like I bought an entry level DSLR with a kit lens so that I could learn exposure, and I was still learning that. Like it took me well over a year just to learn the DSLR, right? Learn all the options. But after that, I kind of got to the point where, well, now I need a 50 millimeter lens, and now I need a wide angle lens, and now I need, you know what I mean? And the list started getting longer, and so one of the things I decided at the time, and even just listening to these podcasts and learning, I knew photography was going to become an expensive hobby for me.
It always is.
Yes. But it was a hobby that I loved, right? And I wanted to get into it, but I didn't have the money for everything I wanted to do, to be honest, right? So one of the things I'm like, okay, well, people are selling photos online. Do you know what I mean? I know lots of people are liking my photos online, so I decided that, all right, I'm just going to post my photos everywhere and try to sell licenses, right? I was an amateur. I didn't really ever think I wanted to quit my day job. I never had a thought that this is ever going to be like a full-time gig for me, because this was it's a hobby. I always wanted to be a hobby, but I wanted the hobby to pay for itself. So I started posting my photos everywhere on Microstock sites, like on all the photography sites I could do. And what I found is that took a lot of time, right? Like if I just had one photo, it's like I could spend an hour each night just uploading one photo. And I'd rather spend my time post-processing and taking photos rather than just uploading them, right? And it's a bit of a monotonous task. So in my day job, though, I'm a software developer, right? So I'm a software consultant, and I build workflow management systems for large companies. So, and I'm kind of I'm a very lazy person that I didn't want to go through it, but I'm willing to work really hard to be lazy.
And at least you're self-aware. I mean, yeah, it's half the battle.
So I spent probably hundreds of hours writing software to automate all these processes for me, right? Jeez. So that I didn't have to spend the hour each night to do it, right? And
that's awesome.
So I did that, and I used that was just like a personal project. I just used it for myself for a number of years, and then just recently, last year, I was talking to a buddy, and other people could use this, right? Like, why isn't there other people out there? So then myself and one of my buddies from university, who's also a software developer, we set out to, all right, let's take what I've done, what I've been using, what I know works, and what saves me so much time, and let's build it into something that other people can use as well, right?
So can you explain a little bit about what it is? You said that it takes you a lot of time to upload photos to each individual sites. So what does Photerloo do?
Yeah. So what Photerloo does is really you can upload your photos to Photerloo, and then you can enter the metadata, right? So especially if you're posting to like Microstock sites or something, the titles and the descriptions and the keywords are really important, right? So what it does is you enter the metadata, it'll read the metadata from your photos, but then it also suggests keywords. So what it will do is it'll look at the photo, use artificial intelligence to try to figure out what's in there and what keywords will be good. So rather than having to type in the keyword, which can be very monotonous, you just choose the keywords that fit, right? Because the artificial intelligence isn't perfect, but it is. It is so we still you pick them, but you pick them, and then once it's uploaded to Photerloo then takes over, and it will upload it to Flickr, to Facebook, to 500px, to Shutterstock. We're also working on Twitter, and Instagram will be coming. So rather than you going to every site and uploading it to each of them, you just upload it once, and then the software just puts it everywhere for you.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would save a ton of time, especially for people who are uploading their photos to so many places. But I want to go back and ask a few questions because I'm not sure that a lot of the beginners might fully understand. I guess just some of the things that you brought up there. So one of them you brought up is Microstock sites, right? Can you tell us a little bit what a Microstock site is?
Okay, so Microstock sites are basically sites where people who buy a lot of creative, like a lot of photos or other designs, other creative, they basically go to buy photos, and they'll often have subscriptions where they can download like 100 photos a month or something like that. So what you do is you can upload your photos to these Microstock sites, and they, in essence, are a middleman. They sell them for you, right? So then when someone goes in and they download your photo, they say, I want to use this photo in an advertisement or in a magazine or wherever they want to use it. They can just download their photo, and then you get paid for each time it's downloaded.
Cool. So okay, I want to branch off a little bit more into that in just a second. But first, you also mentioned that when you upload your photo to Photerloo, it'll save all the metadata. Can you talk a little bit about what metadata is for those who don't know?
Yeah, so the metadata is metadata is really data about data, right? So the data is your photo, right? But you want to like, um, if you're using something like Lightroom or another photo management system, right? There's also metadata. There's data about how you took the photo, right? Like the exposure you used, the shutter speed, those types of things. And there's also data that you can enter in as well, right? Like about the title of the photo or the description or the location of the photo, as well as the keywords for the photo, right? So once you start taking, you know what I mean? Like I take about 15 to 20,000 photos a year. Once you start taking that many photos and you need a program like Lightroom and to organize them, and that's how it's organized. And that's how you search and you find your photos is through the metadata.
Gotcha. So if okay, now I guess I want to talk a little bit more about Microstock Sites. First of all, so let's just say average guy, you know what? I love photography and it's a great hobby, but it's not making me any money. He hears your episode right now and he's like, wait a second, I could make a few dollars on one of these sites. How does this thing work? The first question that they're going to have, I'm sure, is going to be, what sorts of things am I taking pictures of? Or who would want to buy my photos? On Microstock Sites, are there prompts? Are they asking for certain types of photos? Or do you just upload whatever you want and hope that the photos get purchased?
Yeah, so they do have certain things they request, right? Like, you know what I mean? They'll want, you can go on the sites and they will ask for things like they'll ask for maybe we want photos of nurses, right? Or something like that. Oftentimes they're very business related requests though, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we want two people shaking hands, right? So so they do have requests on a lot of the sites, the types of photos that they're seeing demand for and they want more of. I don't typically look at that though. I just shoot, again, it's a hobby. So I shoot travel photos. I go places that I want to go because I want to go to those places, and I take photos of those places when I'm there, and then I upload them afterwards. So the types of people that are buying my photos are often you can search and find your photos online using Google reverse search afterwards, right? So a lot of times they're like magazines or travel blogs or a lot of travel related sites because I take travel related photos. But if someone was into taking portraits, then do you know what I mean? There's obviously people out there looking for portraits for blogs and social media and different sites as well, right? So there's often a demand for anything you take, right? And if there's not, then it just won't get sold. Which right. a lot of my photos don't get sold as well. But I'm okay with that, right? Because I still like them and I enjoy taking them.
So then I guess the next question I got to ask is, do you get to set your own prices? Or you said that some people have subscriptions for, say, 100 downloads a month. Is that predicated on price of photos, or is it just you upload your photo and the website determines the cost of the photo?
Yeah. So it depends on the site. The most popular Microsoft sites, you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. It's basically like there's a set pricing structure, and depending on the type of license that someone purchases, and really depending on how much the Microsoft site gets paid, you get paid a percentage of that, is the way most of them work. Now, there are other sites that do let you sell the photo, and you can actually set your own prices. But those are probably like less popular. And I do have my photos on both types of sites, and I do make a lot more revenue on the ones that just set the price for you, and you can download. Even though you can set higher price than the other ones, you just get less downloads. It's better to have high volume with low things than having low volume and a higher price. That's at least what I found.
Especially because once a photo's already been taken, once it's been edited, once it's finished, there's really not much overhead. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Right? And there's obviously these sites have a lot of photos as well, right? So yeah.
Is there any sort of, do you have to pay to be on these sites, or is it free to upload? You only get paid if you sell a photo?
Yeah, they're free to upload, and then you only get paid if you sell the photo for the most popular ones.
So you mentioned that there's a lot of businessy type photos that people take. Are there people who just go out there and look for prompts on these sites and then go out to replicate those photos just to try to sell? Is that something that happens?
Oh yeah, there's definitely people like that make a living on Microstock, and that's their full-time job. And you can find them on the web. It's looking at the comments on blog posts. It's not, people are often complaining about that making a living doing it. But there are definitely people out there that do make a very good living, and they often blog about it as well. Just shooting microstock, and that can be like a full-time career. Yeah.
So then my next question, if people are making a good living off of it, how much work does it take how much work do you have to put in? Research do you have to do just to make, say, $100 or $200 a month?
Yeah. So like I think the people that are making a living doing microstock, they're shooting every day, right? Because they have thousands or tens of thousands of photos on these sites, right? So they're looking, they have studios, they're going out every day, getting ideas, shooting things, uploading 10 photos or 100 photos a day, right? They have very high value, high items, and it's a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
Because as all your photos are up there, they will decline slowly over time, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like you upload photos and they will get out of date, and someone will take a better photo and then they'll upload that person's, right? So they do need to keep working on it every day. So those people take a lot. For myself, like I do photography. It's still a hobby. I do it in my spare time. After I uploaded about 100 photos, I was able to make like about $100 a month off the Microstock sites.
And how much research went into what photos you should upload? Because you said that you take like up to 20,000 a year. How do you pick just 100?
I just pick my best photos, right? Okay. So I when I go through, so I go and if I go traveling, like I'm going out, if I go out, traveling with my family, I'll go out and, a lot of mornings I'll wake up before sunrise and go out and just take photos by myself. So I'll come back from like a week long trip with 2,000 or 3,000 images, and then part of my process is those all go into Lightroom, and then I sit down and I will go through all those images, and I always end up with about 30 that are the ones that are like my favorite, and then so I choose those 30, and then those 30 are the ones that I'll post process, and I'll actually go through and then I'll spend time going through and creating the image that I want to create, right, with that raw data that I took on vacation. So it's those 30 or those best ones. Those are the ones that I put on the web, right? So nothing else goes on the web. No one else sees all the mistakes I make, right? When I'm out there. And then those ones that are good, those are the ones that I put on all the websites. I don't put everything out there, right?
If you upload a site to one of these Microstock sites, are you allowed to, I guess, what are the legalities about it? You can still post it obviously to Facebook, Flickr, 500px. Is there anything that you can't do with a photo?
So it depends again on the site and the way you set it up. There are sites that you need to be exclusive, or they'll pay you more if you are exclusive. So you can be exclusive to one Microstock site and they will pay you more to do that. And then basically then you're somewhat limited. Now I haven't done that. I just put my stuff everywhere. So I'm always non-exclusive, because I also sell licenses from my site as well. And every once in a while, someone will see a photo that they really like on Flickr, and they'll contact me directly, and then I'll sell it from my site. And if you do say you're exclusive, then you can't do that. You would then need to send them to the Microstock site to do. So I do everything non-exclusive, and I just put it everywhere.
It's more fun that way too, right? I mean, if you take the photos and you love it, you're going to want to share it, to your own friends and family anyway. So
exactly.
I can see that. However, I'm sure the people who are just doing this professionally day in, day out, that's probably the way to go. You're probably not going to be posting all these photos of nurses shaking hands in front of doctor, you know what I mean? Like on Facebook or something like that. So that brings me to my next question is, how do people find certain photos on these sites?
Yeah, so most of with Google, they've got a search algorithm on the site. So most people will go into the sites and do a search algorithm. Some of them even have more advanced where they can search based on color or a bunch of other items, right? But the majority of it is based on the keywords that you actually put. So the description you put in the photo and the keywords you put in the photo.
How many keywords or tags, I guess, are you giving each photo before you upload it?
So they have different limits. Some of them will have 150. Most of them around 50 to 75. So typically, if I'm uploading something to Microstock, I will typically have 30 to 50 keywords associated to it.
Okay, and that's where Photerloo comes in, saves you a ton of time, because if you're uploading it to multiple sites, you don't want to be putting titles for each one and then 30 to 50 to 100 to 120 tags each photo every time you upload it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right as well. Yeah, and Yeah, so it's a lot of work to put, even just to figure out what those keywords are, right? If you look at one of your photos and think, okay, what are 50 words that describe this? Like,
Hmm.
that's not always the easiest thing. So even just like the suggestions also help out with that, right? Like, so yeah, putting the keywords in, you know what I mean, putting the titles. Another thing I do differently is that I do is when I upload something to a social site, like if I upload something to Facebook, I normally kind of tell the story of how I took the photo, right?
Yeah.
But on Microsoft site, no one cares about that. They just care about where they just care about where the photo is and whether they like it or not. So I do have like a different. Typically, I have one description that goes to the social sites like the 500px and Flickr and Facebook, and then I have another title and description that I put on the Microstock site. So Photerloo helps with that as well. It allows you to enter them both in, and then it will put the right title and description and push it to the right site.
I love that. So let's see. Um, I found you because you had just posted an article on Petapixel, and it was a great article, and I believe it was titled "Do you have a?" Okay, let me take a step back. I'll let you do this article justice. Can you tell people about the article, about the photo specifically mentioned in the article, and how much work went into getting it to the success that it has had?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the article was about like my most successful photo on Microstock, and basically over the past years, it's sold 6,000 times and it's made me over $4,000, right? So the reason I wrote the article, just stepping back, is that if you search on Microstock on the web and search about it and start reading the blogs, there's a lot of negative information out there about it, right? And when I was looking into it, when I was doing research on this, I was like, wow, like why does anybody do this? There's just so much negative information. But I kind of, because it's like, oh, you'll never make any money. You know what I mean? It's not worth the while. It's not worth the effort. A lot of people like blogging and saying things like that. But I kind of got past that, and I said, you know, I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna go through and upload it, and so I started doing that. And the reason I wrote the article is that there's so much negative information. I wanted to put some positive information out there as well, because this one photo that I uploaded in 2012. So it's a photo of basically a mountain scene. It's Moraine Lake. It's a really famous lake in the Canadian Rockies. So in Canada, it used to be on our $20 bill. Like it's a tourist attraction. I
It's
woke up one
iconic.
morning. Yeah, it's iconic, right? It's very well known landscape scene. And so when I was going through the Rockies on traveling, one morning I woke up at 5 in the morning and I went there for sunrise, right? So I went there. I was there like a good probably hour before the sun was supposed to come up, set up my camera, and I just had the most amazing light that day. It was just like it was just the perfect sunrise. It was somehow going through the clouds perfectly, that it just made the tops of the mountains totally red, right? And it was amazing to see. And I was lucky for that day, just one of those weather days, right, that I was able to capture it with my camera. So I went through and I post-processed it. I probably didn't spend like, you know, more than like, it took a lot of time to scout the location. I went there the day before actually as well, and I looked at it in the pouring rain the day before, and you know I knew exactly where I was going to set up. Went in, took the photo, you know, took a lot of great photos that morning actually, and then post-processing, it was because of the light was so good, I didn't even have to do that much post-processing on it. I probably spent 15 minutes post-processing it, and then I uploaded to social media, and it's like on 500px, it was like in the most popular the first day. A lot of other sites, it just got a lot of
Traction.
views, a lot
Hmm.
of traction. And then I put it on, and so I also uploaded it to the Microstock sites, and it very quickly ranked number one for one of the major Microsoft sites for the search of Canada. And so every day for the past like 5 years, there's been like one or two people that have downloaded that photo. And it's like, I see it all over the way. I'll be sitting on Facebook and a Facebook ad will pop up and it'll be like my photo. And so,
Like, come travel to Canada. Look at our beautiful landscapes, and you're like, I've seen that. I took this photo.
yes. That's really how, so a lot of blogs, because it ranks really high for Canada, what a lot of people, when they're blogging elsewhere, like about traveling to Canada, it ends up on a lot of those blog posts. So that's why it's had like such success, because people are, you know, just purchasing it off these stock sites.
That's awesome. That's so cool that it's just like, this hobby, you found a way to make a few extra dollars. And it, like you said, it's not enough to live on, and that's not even what it is that you're looking for. But $4,000 off this one photo is enough to buy a few bodies, buy a few lenses, and just to keep the momentum going in the hobby. And like you said, photography can be an expensive hobby, and I understand that. When I first started, whew, man, my wife and I had a lot of discussions about how much money I was spending on these cameras that weren't making any money. Why was I doing this? And this is just a great way to keep it going and have a reason why now you can buy that brand new 50 mm lens. So
Yeah.
I love your story. Can you, if you could tell a younger James one piece of information about photography, the young James who knew nothing about cameras, knew nothing about photography, if you could tell him one thing that you know now, what do you think that would be?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably say just get out and shoot more. To be honest, right? I think that there was a point where I was in a bit of like analysis paralysis, where it's like I didn't, I was like from moving from auto off of auto, right? I spent a lot of time just like reading and like, okay, what is aperture? What is what is shutter speed? How do I use this, right? And I spent a lot of time reading and not enough time shooting to start out with. I think when I really started to get better was I read something and then I went out and I did it. And then I came back and I read something else and then I went out and did it. Because there's just so much information out there. It's so easy just to like read forever and never go out and do it, right? So you got to kind of like just get a list of all the. Eventually, what I did was when I saw something that I wanted to try, I just started putting it on a list, and I wouldn't go to number 2 on the list until I tried number 1, right?
Oh, wow. That's smart.
Yeah, and so once I started doing that, that's when I think I really started to get better. Because it was like, okay, that was number 1. Okay, now I tried that. It worked. All right, let's do number 2. And I still actually keep a list of like, or every time I see a blog post, I'm like, that's a good idea. I should try that. And it goes to this massive list. And it's also good for keeping ideas, right? And it kind of keeps me motivated. It helps me realize as much as I sometimes do create good pictures, there's still so much more to learn and so many more cool things I can do, right?
So I got to ask, what is next on the list?
Next on the list actually is doing more video stuff. So I want to do. Have you seen hyperlapses?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to try hyperlapse.
That's that's definitely something to tackle. That's going to be quite a learning curve for sure. For people listening who don't know what a hyperlapse is, it's like a time lapse, except you're physically moving your camera so that when you stitch it all together, it looks like a very fast motion video, but it's all out of photos. A lot of technicals go into it, and I would say a great tripod is probably the best piece of equipment. Probably more important than the camera itself for hyperlapses. So that's cool. I'm really excited to see that. I think you're somebody who's going to go out there and really give it your all, and I can't wait to see how that turns out. So lastly, I really want to be conscious of your time. Can you let all the listeners know where they can find you online, find out more about Photerloo, and go from there?
Yeah. So for Photerloo, you can just go to photerloo.com. You can just search on the web. It's the only one that has that name. So you can go take a look there. Right now, the software, we're still testing it. We don't have a paid version. It's still in beta, but it's open beta. So anybody can go in and sign up and start using it. I'll preface that we are still working on it. So we're still working out some of the kinks, but we do have a number of people that are using it, and it is fully functional. So that's kind of for Photerloo, for the posting the photos online. If you want to see some of my own stuff, if you search for me on any of the major social networks, it's either under James Wheeler or my website is souvenirpixels.com. So you can also go to souvenirpixels.com if you want to see my photos, and from there I link to everywhere else where I am on Twitter and Flickr and all those places.
That is such a cool website title. I love that. Souvenirpixels.com. I love that. How long did it take to come up with that? Or is that something that you've been like mulling over in your head for years?
Well, no, I've had that blog for like at least 5 years, and it just kind of came today because like my photography, it is all about like the reason I do photography is about like I love traveling, and it's about the souvenir, right? It's about when I go traveling, I don't buy souvenirs. I take photos, and the photos are my souvenirs. And that's just kind of the way that is why I do photography, right? So, it just kind of came to me one day, and luckily no one else had thought about it yet. So,
don't you love when that happens? I feel like there's so many people on the internet that every time you have a good idea, it's already been invented or something's already been taken. That's always a total win for the day when you come up with this great idea and it hasn't been stolen yet. So that's very cool. Well, James, I am super excited to keep up with you online. I can't wait to see this hyperlapse whenever you come out with it. And I'm sure that the listeners are going to reach out as well. Also, you are going to get an invitation to the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group, which is where listeners can come on Facebook, find past guests, and ask them personalized questions instead of having to go through emails or just having all these contact places all over the place. So do you think that'd be somewhere where if anybody had any questions, they'd be able to reach out and ask you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I check Facebook, maybe not every day, but I do check Facebook most days. So yeah, if someone reached out to me on there, I'll see and I'll definitely answer any questions anybody has.
Awesome. Well, James, again, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
So tell me, are you anything like me? Did you immediately after this episode, are you thinking about all the photos that you have on your hard drive, maybe from past vacations or travels or just anything in general that you can upload to these Microstock sites and hopefully make a few dollars? I mean, why not? Most of these sites are free. All you got to do is just invest the time in tagging, keywording, and uploading, obviously, all of these photos. And then, you just hope for the best. Obviously, the more photos that you upload, the better chance of a certain photo being found or making more money. So, there's no better time than to do it, but right now. So that's my task for you guys this week. Go home, or if you're already at home, then just go on to step number 2. Go onto your hard drive of photos or just go straight into Lightroom, because that's where they should already be categorized and keyworded properly and everything. And they're already going to be edited right there. And export all your favorite photos, take them into Photerloo and give it a shot, right? Because if like James said, it takes a while to upload all these photos, tag them properly and, keyword them, all that metadata. If that takes a long time, save yourself that time by combining the one source that you upload to be able to distribute it to multiple channels. That will just increase your likelihood of making an extra $1. And James made $4,000 off of one photo. One photo. What's the coolest piece of camera equipment that you would buy right now if you had $4,000? I bet you might have a photo on your computer right now that is worth $4,000. So that's it. Go ahead. I want you to find your best photo on your hard drive and start uploading them today. Give Photerloo a shot. And then also take the photos, upload them into Instagram. Tag the Beginner Photography Podcast. I'd love to check them out. Our username, if you're not following us on Instagram, is Beginner Photo Podcast. And, we will be sure to interact with your photo. I'd love to check it out and see it. I will be doing the same thing on my personal Instagram page of R Hatfield Photo. Now, traditionally, these are all, weddings and engagements, but I think I'll be able to find something that'll work and maybe make me a few bucks. Who can say no to free money? So that's it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did and you have any follow-up questions for James, feel free to join the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group. And if you're not already a part of it, just head over to facebook.com/Beginner Photography Podcast. Send me a message and I will give you the link right away to be able to join. There you will be able to ask any questions for James or any past guests as well for anything that you might have. Maybe it's just common question or personal question about how somebody does something. I'm sure that they're going to be more than happy to answer. That's it, guys. Again, go out, enjoy this week. We're springtime. Go out, shoot, have fun. I love you guys. Enjoy, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. Be sure to join the conversations on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want any links or resources we talked about in today's episode, check out the show notes at beginnerphotographypodcast.com. See you again next week.